Leandro Melendez, I think Senior Performer, everyone knows him, many years of experience and shared contents. You may know him from many diverse events, conferences, meetings. Also, we have Anisbert from Cuba and the other speakers from Mexico. Anisbert, you live in Canada? So a multi-country panel is such a luxury for you to be here today. Anisbert, she's Cuban, over 15 years working in quality, performing engineer, senior in Pedido Ya, or she was a co-founder of Andex One and a professor of Ord Engineering University. So an excellent professional plus a teacher. Also Antonio Jiménez, who's done performance testing at all levels of all types, which you will see in just a bit when he talks to us. And José Wenceslao Wayne, he's an software engineer with many years of experience, great activities in conferences, workshops, networks, programming marathons, and he's a strong promoter of free software. So with the speakers introduced, please enjoy this panel, and let's start. Okay, so welcome to this panel. In this presentation, there was a brief introduction. I have podcast, as you mentioned. I have several years experience in technology and performance. And well, would you like to add anything else? So that's from LinkedIn, but it's not updated. I work in global and level 3. And observability, graph network, all of these kind of products just because I like it. As Arcadia was saying, I've been working on software quality for over 15 years. I specialize in performance engineer, currently in Pedido Ya, and as part of reliability engineer team, where we're trying to promote good quality practices to work better. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to share with you today and transmit the whatever experience we might have accumulated throughout our work. Hi, I'm Antonio Jiménez. I've been working in performance for 15 years. We have a blog together with Leandro, and also some channels. It's not Jaimir. It's performance in Spanish. That's a work in progress. Now that you know everyone a bit better, we were talking about what would be best to talk about in the panel. So performance it's been changing. In the past 10, 15 years, there have been so many changes in technology. So how should it be done from now onward? So the interaction with the software has changed a lot. there's so many things that continue to be created and that we need to face in terms of performance quality for our softwares. So we decided to share our specific experiences. What are the details, the elements that we notice that have been changing lately? What evolutions or changes are no longer applied? So please, Wen, tell us about your perspective in the first place. So I'm going to talk about tools. We used to have many tools with paid tools with licenses. An ancient concept almost. Today, you get whatever you want. We have devices, we have cell phones, and there are many tools that have not been developed yet. When we started using virtual helmets, well, we need a performance for that. We need tools to test that. It's a different technology. So before, there were different sources for tools and restrained, limited tools. So you need to use whatever you need to use for a given context. Just don't marry into one tool in particular. Let's know how it should work from now on. So in my team, I let them choose whatever they want to use in order to acquire, to accomplish a goal. And it was a scandal initially. So until we started to understand that we don't have to marry into a tool, let me note that there used to be before very few tools and paid, but not many, only a two or three. In my case, in particular, something that I think has been changing in performance engineering is on which environment will you want to test. So we want to test as closer as we can to our executing. Sometimes we can have an environment that is very faithful, but that's not always the case. We don't always have the possibility to have the same architecture, infrastructure, or the economical means because we have changed, we have developed, and it needs to be something effective, but also cost effective. So in Pedidos Ya, when they asked us to translate the performance testing into execution, we started working obsessively on this. So we were kidding. I don't want pizzas to arrive at my place. So right now we don't run tests on staging. Our tests are 100% on production and always on the first stages. We want to normalize so that our resilience methods are so strong that we can run risks at any time because we rely on our quality. We don't run performance at high peak hours. And we think about how to disseminate given brands in order to make them better known. We have our test users. It's a very ambitious project that needs to contemplate a lot of inputs. Whatever you do in testing, you cannot, and you need to be 100% sure that there won't be any risks in terms of the functioning of the business. We need to give a reliable result that really allows us to confirm what we think and to avoid risks. At the level of management, also, it's a huge commitment that needs to be considered. Also, I think that everyone here heard, well, production is something we cannot touch. We cannot mess with production. So let me tell you that this paradigm is changing today. So final configurations. We don't need to change this without a specific aim. But the mindset is changing. Production is not the only thing that we care about now. We have to consider the cloud. We have to consider reachability. So let's test with users. Let's change our mindset. There are many new things that can be done and are starting to be done, not only in performance, in terms of features, A/B, green, blue. There are N that we can start implementing to improve our quality tests. Up until 10, 15 years ago, as Wen was telling us before, as a rocket launching, we needed to prepare so much variables, the database, validate the environment, validate sometimes work on weekends, during the night. All of these variables needed to be taken into account just for one single test. So it was so hard to control and many things could go wrong. So it wasn't always valuable. It didn't always provide value. Today, testing is continuous. It's constant. This gives us an idea that is way more current and real about how our system is behaving. We don't need to design all of these controlled events, and that allows us to be more agile and to have the stakeholders updated at all times on the performance of the product. So the analogy with the rocket space is very popular. If you have, I remember a huge project we used to work with, and we had only one window before the project started to test it. This was the only opportunity. So the performance testing needed to be perfectly designed in order for it to work. We need to plan with a lot of preparation to consider all of the variables. Now the perspective has really changed. It's not a one opportunity test as it used to be. Now testing is continuous. And so it's not on day one that we need to think on quality. It's on day -1 that we need to start thinking on quality and testing. Principles and practices need to be focused on testing performance, testing quality. Considering the changes I've seen lately, one thing I see a lot is that the performance and quality performance responsibilities are increasingly being shared within the team. a product owner who doesn't know how to do a pull request. If the team cannot collaborate, if the automation software is not accessible, if it is not something that all of the people in the team can access, oh no, I'm the master of
No,
only I can control it. Well, that will limit the whole project. If everyone needs to wait so that only one person will start updating, well, it doesn't work. Responsibility needs to be shared. So it's a limit for performance, but it also induces a change, a waste in time and in the product delivered, in its quality. So think about us asking for a menu in a restaurant. So the chef will prepare everything lovely with a beautiful presentation. It will give it to the tester. The tester will give it to the final user. Look, no salt, it's raw. So
bien,
it needs to be, once it had already been made, cooked, presented, it needs to go back into the kitchen and start all over again. So when we give freedom to the team and we allow the team to work together, these kind of things won't happen anymore. So let's share performance quality and let's induce all of the team members to be responsible and to take this quality into account. It's not the tester's problem, it's everybody's problem. The testers versus developers is just, it's so unhelpful. We need to bring down those barriers. Another thing that also has changed is the results issue in reports. I think it was already mentioned before on the quality panel. Let me ask you, when we go to the doctor and we have analysis, so what do we expect? If we have a blood test and we have 1,000 values, what do I want? I just want to know if I'm okay. So the results before, when we did a performance testing, we delivered a report, 1,000-page report, just to say if something was okay or not. And so nowadays it's only metrics. So if all of the team is involved, managers, senior managers, developers, testers, we all want to know the same thing. So if we share this information, we won't have to face anyone. Rather, we'll have allies because each of us within the corporation has a specific interest in this performance test. So we can all understand the report in terms of what we are interested based on our role, and we will be able to interact and help each other to achieve our goals. The metrics will allow us to understand if it's behaving as it should or not. I like to compare this with a car where we have a dashboard. We can see how it's working, if it needs an oil change. We don't need to work with cars to be experts in order to understand the dashboard. We don't need to work with cars to see that we need gas. Actually, modern cars can even notify parents about the driving of their kids. I mean, things have changed just so much. So these kind of principles in performance is so important. Just share the information and share responsibility with the whole team so that they can see what's going on, so that they become invested. And the project development, including the quality testing, is not limited. Another good practice that we used to think was mad, but today is very popular, is a resilient testing, where we try to break something down in order to fix it. How much will a service take if X and X happens? So for that specific case, we go into a negative scenario to see how the system would respond in a given specific negative context. How do we adjust timeouts and responses? How many retries can I assume to continue in the flux and not see the service interrupted? And so that the business is not damaged. So we do, and nowadays we generate chaos and we imagine this perspective. Something that was a crazy scenario a few years ago. That's also how performance testing has changed so much. It allows us to predict negative things and to respond accordingly. So while Anisbert is talking about chaos in the context of performance, there are many things related to infrastructure operations when it comes to chaos and performance. Sometimes I think that it's important to change the hat. If if you're an SRE, I need to deal with chaos. I need to deal with automation. Yes, indeed, you need to jump from one role to the other. You have to bring down obstacles. We should all be thinking about the big picture of solutions. So about what Wen was saying before in terms of results, I definitely the results before they used to be presented as a huge report, very hard to read. Very few people were able to understand these reports. There was sometimes an executive report for senior management, but they were way too long documents. Today, results are presented in a way more friendly way. Documents also, it happened something similar. A lot of information, very long, a lot of people just, it was so boring. And with the agile methodologies, the idea is precisely to correct these kind of things. Documentation has evolved into something that is way more useful, that you can access on the cloud. It's not an actual document that you have to go into a shared folder. You may not have the access. It's important to make this knowledge, these reports, these documents available to everyone. It's important to understand where I will be working, if it's a specific file type, a doc. Documents is everything that helps the team. So it needs to be shared and accessible to all of the team. I wanted to save for last. I want us to understand that performance testing is not the same as load testing. It's very important. I know you were all expecting me to make this clarification. Is testing back test? Well, no. And currently, there is a continuous change. It's no longer a single rocket that needs to be launched with huge reports. Now it's a continuous process. We need to watch every user, every process. And we may have issues with concurrence or load, but having continuous performance testing, let's stop servers, single servers, they are now widely distributed worldwide. I mean, that's an ancient idea. Let's think about the clouds. Change that perspective. Performance, monitoring, and having the data, being able to see in real time what is happening. I know that if you're not working in performance, it may make you a bit anxious, but essentially, you shouldn't have to automate everything in order to work in performance. Many of you told us that you are manual testers or guys, people who works on automation. So how can I do performance? Mr. Performer was saying performance is not load. It's all about capturing information related to performance. So if you do manual tests, you can go into a web and in a very subjective way, identify that a given web page is slow and write it down in a sheet of paper. And she can give this actual value of manual testing to the person who's writing the report. She can capture it as a tool and make it a continuous test, which is what engineers actually do. So welcome, please get to know the world of performance engineering. We no longer think about when we monitor, we do evaluate performance, and if we need to understand peak hours and how the business worked and consumption worked, I'm also evaluating performance. So we're more aspirational now. Our resources are devoted to peak tests, to stress tests, to mitigate other risks. You need a lot of developing and automation in the background when you're doing performance testing to have the adequate basis, to have the adequate metrics, and not be afraid of what may be coming in your way, because you'll just experience it as you go. It's important to advice with to have advice from people, from experts, actually, to interact with other perspectives, with people who are knowledgeable on the area, so that we can help each other improve our practices, our quality, and basically, well, just to improve continuously. Never stop learning. Don't be afraid of performance. So, how did you start in this chaos engineering field? How did this change arise within the team? So, when we were told that we had to start creating errors in purpose to simulate how the app would respond, it was very challenging. But you get to understand what are the incidents that pose the higher risk. What are these incidents? What are the biggest risks? What can we learn from these errors that we purposefully simulate? And how can I start? And it's been a challenge when you generate on purpose this chaos. But we're still working on it, to tell you the truth. And it's a cultural change where we need to think about the benefits of applying a given chaos in a controlled but purposeful way. We're going to lose a lot less than if it happens spontaneously. So it's a prophylactic measure, really. If you get prepared before being wounded, it will hurt less. And this is a way in which you can convince your team or your managers or your senior management in order to try this chaos engineering.